Good day to those of you who are viewing this presentation by way of your social media network. Today we come to you from the studio of Christ Community Worship Center, where we were supposed to begin January 17th, the commemoration of what is called Dream Week in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, through the Beloved Community Council's Peace Walk that they had scheduled. Unfortunately, due to the arrival of the forecast of snowy weather and ice conditions, they chose to forego this walk and rather offer a virtual opportunity for others to plug in and to be inspired and encouraged for the endeavor of the Dream Week. Dream Week is in essence an opportunity to commemorate the life, the legacy, and certainly the tremendous sacrifice of a man by the name of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I believe it incumbent upon us to not only celebrate the dream, but to also re-envision what the dream looks like in 2022. I prepared a short presentation for you in that I want to call you to introspection. I want to call you to reflecting upon your past and certainly giving consideration for what you're going to do in the future with a direct connection to the subject, the content, and the character of the dream that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. desired to see in his generation. David Barton, he's an historian chronicling the plight of African American history. He was asked this question: why would you, an Anglo, care about the story of African American political history? His answer should resonate in our ears as we consider: have we realized the dream of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? David Barton said, "I am an American, period. The story of African American history is part of American history. Therefore, it is my history." I don't know that any clearer words could be spoken in a racially charged, highly discriminative environment that we are living in. Whether it be hate speech or the injustices that we've seen throughout social media venues, whether it is direct encounters whereby individuals of brown, black, red skin would be hated against just for the color of their skin. These things should resonate to us. The laundry list of individuals who have lost their lives simply by the injustices that have pervaded itself within our social construct. And so when we think about the words of David Barton, reconstructing the nature of history and how African Americans played such a critical influence in that history, we have to understand that far from it being a issue of color, it's more an issue of true patriotism and those who would subscribe to an American context of being afforded the opportunity to be a part of this democracy. Dr. King, among many others, has paved the way for the remembrance and reflection upon the fight for civil liberty in America. When we think of words that characterize the movement, we're bound to consider Rosa Parks' refusal as an epic shift in setting the stage for what is known as the Montgomery boycott. And so when you think of that uprising, there are other ideals that come into our reflection. That's in the year of 1955, and another incident that occurred within that year, in August 28th of 1955. We also consider a young boy by the name of Emmett Till, who was visiting his family in a place called Money, Mississippi. That should put a smile on your face. Money, Mississippi. But think about it. In Money, Mississippi, this young boy, 14 years old, visiting his family, in Money, Mississippi, had come from Chicago, and maybe his context for classism, racism, discrimination wasn't as resolute, because within the North, some minor changes had been made to the context of social etiquette. And so in the South, not much had changed. And as a result, it was said by a woman by the name of Carolyn Bryant that he had said some things to her that were incredulous, that bordered on the wrong side, if you will, of the tracks at that time. And Emmett Till, if you don't know the story, was then taken. He was mangled, he was mutilated, he was shot, he was left for dead. He was put in a river or a pond, and in so doing, that's one of the most incredible images historically that you see within the scope of the era of the bus boycott, the civil rights movement, the times and the faces that changed history. And so when we're called to think about this today, today's economic, educational, and technological advancements have afforded us, many, with the opportunity to create a legacy within our own families. But we still see and have a long way to go. It's hard to catch up in a race that began 400 years ago, but yet leaves you 400 years behind. Therefore, may Dream Week and the Peace Walk represent the call for introspection, to examine where we've fallen short. Where we've fallen short locally. In my own context, when I think about the responsibility that I have as a pastor, as a father, as a community activist in some way, as someone who would hope to inspire others to be their best selves. And I think that's very incumbent upon the nature and the scope of the climate that we're experiencing today. And so when I begin to give context to this, I think in terms of how can I affect the place where I currently reside? I can only shine the light in the corner where I reside. And so I think that's first, and it begins locally. It begins with us in our own city, in our own country. You know, if you live on Elm Street, you need to be a light on Elm Street. If you live on 4th Street, you need to be a light on 4th Street. If you live on Maynard, you need to be a light on Maynard. And so then the context of our local light will begin to be expressed in a more regional sense. And when you think of your regional light, maybe you have relatives in another place that you begin to affect because you have influence upon their lives. All of these things are paramount. I believe those were the same seeds that were planted by Rosa Parks, by Emmett Till, and those seeds began to maturate when you think of the actions of a Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and all of those that began to accept the message and respond to the call for civil liberties to be invoked upon all shades and all hues. When I think about Dream Week and the Peace Walk, yes, it's a call for introspection, a call to look within before looking without. Before you can affect a problem, it's important that you are aware of the problems that exist within yourself. And in so doing, then you can be the change, as many have said, that you want to see in the world. When I think of closing words in regards to Dream Week and the Peace Walk and introspection and reflection upon the life, the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I think in terms of what I can do today. I can be the change that I want to see in the world. I can ultimately grab a hold of the dream that's been given to me and begin to work as desperately as possible to see that dream realized. Whether that dream is raising up a Life Child Care Learning Center to facilitate before and after school program and a preschool that will help young people to have a sense of worth and value, have a sense of education and get a head start in this world that we're living in, or whether that's a gentleman that I met just the other day who runs a place called Hands Up, and that place is reshaping the lives of individuals within its own context, run by Doug Devin, or whether that's a place down the street, American Rescue Workers, who tirelessly works to give opportunities to individuals who would otherwise not have access. I think of these kinds of constructs, whether it's a church on your corner, or whether it's an individual in your neighborhood that is affecting change in such a way that allows you to see an example that you can in turn also be that example. These are the things that I begin to think of in terms of the Dream Week and the Peace Walk. I think Dr. King said it best in terms of the peace that you and I want to experience must be the peace that we give. And I think those are settled in the words of someone that spawned the earth over 2,000 years ago. The Bible says, "Greater love hath no man than this, than a man to give his life for a friend." In closing, we saw Dr. King assassinated in 1968, and his life cut short, as it were, even though I believe he knew what he was going to experience. Was in many ways, the world was shocked by the experience. And now we have an opportunity to shape the earth with leaders and individuals that are shakers and movers and life changers in the world. Maybe you're one of them. I believe if you're taking this journey on this peace walk and being a part of this Dream Week, that definitely ensures that you are indeed one of them. Be inspired, be encouraged, do your best to be your best and to shape our country in a way that can benefit others to be the best that they can be as well. God bless you. God be with you. Enjoy this week, and thank you.